Hey Summoners, welcome to another episode of ProGuides COUNTERPICKS. No matter what the meta is, you can't always get a hold of the strongest champions available, and that's why it's important to have a few practice counterpicks to whatever champions are running rampant in solo queue. But before we get started, our question of the day is, which champion counterpick do you go for the most? Let us know all your answers in the comments below. For me, it's obviously going to be Morgana into Blitzcrank. I think that's a dead giveaway. Whenever there's a Blitzcrank, I definitely want to play Morgana. It's the same thing with Thresh. Now, without further delay though, let's get into it. To kick things off, we're going to talk about how to counter two very popular carry top laners, Darius and Fiora. Our first spotlighted counter is none other than the cantankerous Cavalier Kled and his reptilian buddy Skarl, in the Darius matchup in particular. There are a few situations where Kled has the outright advantage, namely when Darius starts the fight. If Darius approaches the Kled by using Apprehend, followed by his Q Decimate and W Crippling Strike, Kled is right where he wants to be. Since Kled is now in melee range, it makes it extremely easy to land Bear Trap on a rope and to continue chasing down Darius by using Joust. This allows Kled to stay in the inner range of Darius' Decimate, avoiding the bonus damage and healing. If you don't have Kled's W Violent Tendencies up though, it's best to just disengage when Darius engages on you and take the fight next time. When initiating the fight as Kled instead, there are a few things that push the fight in your favor. Firstly, having the slightly bigger minion wave is always advantageous. Secondly, jousting into Darius and immediately landing Bear Trap on a rope will give you the time to auto him down while he struggles to respond. Combined with Violent Tendencies, this allows Kled to quickly stack Conqueror while also reducing Darius' healing with Bear Trap on a rope, making the fight fairly one-sided. That being said, here are a few quick notes for the matchup. Try to dodge away from Darius' Decimate by using Joust, or rather take the aggressive and Joust in. Either way, you always want to avoid the outer ring of damage. Bear Trap on a rope reduces healing from both Conqueror and Decimate, making it important to hit. The best time to engage on Kled is when you have extremely low HP on Skarl and Violent Tendencies is off cooldown. In most situations, if you joust in followed by Bear Trap on a rope and have Darius dismount you, you will have a significant counterattack fueled by Violent Tendencies and Kled's unmounted Q. You will remount and have all your cooldowns ready for the following chase. Focus your build around Tiamat, Ninja Tabi, and Black Cleaver to counter the lane. While Poppy can and will get outscaled in the Fiora matchup, assuming both players reach 5 items, Poppy can put a lot of pressure on Fiora's early game. Fiora often wants to go for Vital Procs in lane by using Lunge, but Poppy's W Steadfast Presence is a great response tool. When Fiora looks like she's going for a Vital Proc, be ready to use Steadfast Presence to cancel her Lunge ability, putting it on full cooldown. From that point, you can look to engage with Poppy's E, Heroic Charge, and Q, Hammer Shock, or just generally zone them away from the minion wave. Engaging with Poppy against Fiora is a bit more tedious. If Fiora is disrespecting you and your big minion wave, you can charge up Grasp of the Undying and look to engage on her with Heroic Charge and Hammer Shock. Anytime that you use Steadfast Presence and she's in melee range, she won't be able to run away without her lunge being cancelled, giving you apt time to deal damage. Another interesting note in this matchup is when you get good at it, the Q animation for Fiora's lunge actually has a bit of a lag time on it on the back end of it. So if you actually press Steadfast Presence almost at any point from the start or finish of it, it will interrupt it, deal the damage, and will stop her from moving further. So you can get quite good at this and use Poppy's Steadfast Presence reactively as opposed to predictively. All that said though, there are a few nuances to Poppy and Fiora, so here's a few tips. Poppy can play slowly and focus on timing her Grasp proc with her passive when she has a ranged auto attack. Poppy also needs to build Bramble Vest and Ninja Tabi in this matchup as her first 2 items. These actually shut down Fiora immensely. Pay close attention to Fiora's Vital Procs. This will give you the time to react with Steadfast Presence when she goes in with Lunge. When engaging, watch out for Fiora's bait. If you charge in willy-nilly, she can easily stun you with her parry. Try to mind game her by approaching without using Heroic Charge, forcing her to predict with her parry instead. A small disclaimer here, when it comes to countering jungle matchups, everything is about lane priority. These tips assume that both champions are fighting in a vacuum, red smite and everything. Without further ado, let's get on to our first counter pick though. Kindred and Graves are both ranged champions with movement abilities, making kiting especially important for the matchup. If Graves initiates the fight, Kindred should kite back with Q, Dance of Arrows, to avoid the second part of Graves' Q, end of the line. As Kindred, you should follow up with E, Mounting Dread, and another Dance of Arrows. Kite backwards while staying at maximum range with Kindred's W, Wolf's Frenzy, to best minimize Graves' damage and to maximize your own. When you initiate the fight as Kindred, the ability order is practically the same. You just need to show fancy feet. When you jump in with Dance of Arrows, Wolf's Frenzy, and Mounting Dread, be sure to position yourself so that you can juke the secondary damage from Graves' end of the line. The 1v1 between Kindred and Graves is balanced on a fine line, so here's a few tips to sum it all up. The most important thing to keep in mind is Graves' end of the line damage. You want to bait Graves in and keep him at max range so that you can best avoid his shotgun and ability damage. If you try to take the raw 1v1, no kiting or anything, you will lose to Graves' burst damage. Both Trundle and Olaf are popular meta picks, and it's easy to see why. They're both great duelists and are strong early game junglers that put pressure on the enemy. Trundle, though, has the upper hand thanks to his Q, Chomp, which steals AD from the enemy. Assuming Trundle has been tagged by Olaf's axe in a 1v1, you want to open up with Chomp and W Frozen Domain to fight back while charging up your Conqueror. It's nothing too special, but Trundle eventually wins the war of attrition with his bonus AD scaling and his AD denial from Chomp. When Trundle engages, it's much of the same. You use his E, Pillar of Ice, to knock up and slow Olaf, while running in with Frozen Domain and Chomp to slow him down. Similar to being engaged upon, you just kind of whack Olaf while you charge your Conqueror and run him down. The matchup is fairly straightforward, but here's a few tips that can make the difference. Dodge axes if you're running at Olaf, otherwise it might be hard to catch up to him with the slow. In a close quarters 1v1, dodging axes can make all the difference. Try to go for small side steps while you're autoing him down. Vayne has a pretty significant range advantage over Galio when played optimally, so she traditionally handles his engagements with ease. If Galio tries to close the distance with his E Justice Punch, you should be able to tumble away or to the side, and proceed to kite Galio without his movement ability. In the event that Galio does get into range, Vayne also has the get out of jail free card of Condemn, easily knocking Galio away before he can do much damage. Vayne doesn't ever really want to hard commit on to Galio, but she can easily win the laning phase by playing smart with her auto attack range. Traditionally, you should have been able to harass Galio with auto attacks and maintain control of the minion wave, forcing Galio to engage if he ever wants to have lane pressure. Things are pretty easy for the Night Hunter, but to sum it all up, here's a few tips. If you get hit by a Galio's Justice Punch, you need to work on your spacing. It's slow enough that you should be able to avoid it almost every time with proper lane position. Make sure you have control of the minion wave before laying down any harassment. And lastly, do not try to play like Double Lift. Seriously, I can't stress this enough in my solo queue games. You're not him. When it comes to Nocturne versus Fizz, let's assume this is a pre-level 6 before their ultimates come into play. In the event that Fizz dashes onto you, you want to instantly respond with Nocturne's Fear Tether and chase him down to make sure the ability procs. Notably, the Fear Tether will follow through onto Fizz even if he uses his E, Playful Trickster. As long as you use Shroud of Darkness to spell shield the second half of Playful Trickster, you should be able to win the extended fight. The other side of the coin is much of the same for Nocturne, except you're on the offensive. Using Q Dustbringer and your Fear Tether will make it easy to chase down Fizz even if he does use Playful Trickster. Be sure to always spell shield the damage and slow from Playful Trickster, as that can always make a difference in the 1v1. If this matchup sounds fairly linear, that's actually because it is. Here's a few tips to take away from the counter pick. Nocturne's Fear Tether cannot be broken by Fizz's Playful Trickster. Nocturne can spell shield Fizz's ultimate Chum the Waters post level 6. And if at any point Fizz engages while you're trying to go for a roam, apply the above steps and profit. Another small disclaimer when it comes to AD carry here, these champions can affect team fights in different ways, but this information is operating under the assumption that the champions are duking it out in a 1v1. Alright, let's be clear here. If Ezreal engages onto Kai'Sa, it's just not happening. If he wins the fight, that just means that you fell super far behind. In a more realistic situation where Kai'Sa engages onto Ezreal, there are two different ways to go about it. First, if you land your W Voidseeker onto an unsuspecting Ezreal, use Supercharge to speed up and eventually close the gap with your ultimate Killer Instinct. Once you're in range for the Killer Instinct, look to jump toward a side where Ezreal will take full damage from a Cathian Rain, while also blocking off his Arcane Shift escape path. In a close quarters situation, run at him and auto attack while preparing to use Supercharge and Killer Instinct to dodge out of all of his skill shots. And if you're able to do that, it's all gravy from there. Be sure to kite in a direction so that you don't lose ground when he Arcane Shifts away. And now, to sum it all up, here are a few tips. You outscale Ezreal in any fight that doesn't turn into a poke war. The DPS difference is actually really clear. If you land the Voidseeker onto Ezreal and the Arcane Shifts away, you'll normally still be in range for your Killer Instinct. Assuming that you don't eat Ezreal's Mystic shots in lane, you naturally will win the 1v1 even early on. Yes, Kai'Sa did end up saving Ezreal in one of Riot's cinematic videos, but that actually won't be you in this matchup. Aphelios is a complicated champion that requires both simple and complicated reactions. If Misfortune starts the fight and you have bad 1v1 guns, disengage immediately. If you have either the Crescendum Calibrum combo or Severum and any other gun, take the 1v1. Assuming you dodge out of her ultimate and she doesn't get a clutch double up bounce on a minion, you should be able to take the fight. In the event that you are engaging confidently as Aphelios, you probably have 2 really good guns or are obscenely far ahead. We could go through every gun combination in the book for Aphelios, but I think we'd all prefer this video doesn't go on for an hour. So as long as you use your abilities properly and you dodge MF's ultimate, you should consistently have the DPS advantage. Aphelios has 99 problems, but being broke ain't one. Wait, guys, he's been broken for so long. It's actually been a big problem. And anyway, here are a few tips. Aphelios' worst 1v1 gun is Infernum. Do not fight with this gun. Severum plus Crescendum is the best 1v1 combo for Aphelios. Place a turret near them and switch to Severum, running full speed ahead to win the auto attack war. You can beat even assassins with this type of DPS. This one goes out to Riot. Please actually nerf this champion. More, please, even more. Thank you. Now we know what you're thinking. Supports aren't usually scrapping, but they do still counter each other. Think of these counters as relatively soft counters, as the picks don't necessarily sway a big advantage. In a situation where Janna is playing aggressively, shielding herself and using her W Zephyr to chase you down, you can easily fire back with your 3-spell combo of Aqua Prison, Ebb and Flow, and Tidecaller's Blessing, since Janna loses her bonus movement speed after using Zephyr. It's also important to remember that Nami's self-casts speed her up and make the chase down fairly routine with Tidecaller's Blessing auto attacks. If you're playing aggressively as Nami, your Ebb and Flow outranges Janna's abilities, so you can theoretically take easy trades with proper lane spacing. This is why we're outlining her as a counter pick. After hitting level 6, if you hit Janna with your Tidal Wave, she will have very little response, giving you the opportunity to nail her with an Aqua Prison. We know most of you aren't support mains, we've seen the numbers, we actually have, so here are a few tips for Nami. Nami's Ebb and Flow has 25 more range when cast on herself. Avoid trying to CC Janna with Aqua Prison when her Zephyr is up. She'll actually be really hard to hit with her bonus movement speed. When it comes to countering Blitzcrank's engagement as Morgana, you just spell shield someone. Anyone. Well, not anyone. Be sure to spell shield who he's hooking or knocking up. When you have lane control, you can look to poke Blitzcrank pre-level 6 with auto attacks and Tormented Soil. Maybe even Dark Bindings if you have spell shield off cooldown. Lastly, here are a few notes on Morgana when she's come face to face with the Steam Giant. Make sure to place 3 points in Morgana's spell shield so that Blitzcrank can't burst it down with just his ultimate. Make sure to stay out of Blitzcrank's ultimate range to avoid being silenced from using your spell shield. Do not get faked out by Blitzcrank running in one direction and shooting his hook in another. You have to be patient. Building off that last point, try to use spell shield once Blitzcrank throws his hook out. This requires good ping and reaction time, but we trust you guys. We know that you can do it. That concludes our latest episode of ProGuides COUNTERPICKS. Thank you so much to everyone for watching. If you guys want more content to help you improve, check out ProGuides.com, where we've teamed up with pro players to create guides designed to take your game to the next level. Also, keep an eye on our YouTube channel, where we're constantly uploading new content just like this. Good luck on the Rift, guys, and we will see you next time.